Hi, everyone. This is your host, Aram Melkoumov, and you're listening to yet another episode of the Product Innovation Series. The guest who I have today on the show is Carmen. She's the Chief Evolution Officer at a company called Zuper. Carmen, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Awesome. Good to be here.
Awesome. First question I have is, as a fellow Canadian, I believe you're originally from Alberta, Canada. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm Canadian, and I grew up in British Columbia, then spent a couple years in Alberta, and then I moved here to Seattle, Washington.
Okay. And how's been life in the U.S.?
Good. Yeah, I came down with a tech company, and then Seattle has a lot of tech marketing, so it's been great. Been a nice time in Seattle.
Awesome. I've never actually been to Seattle. I heard it rains a lot, like in Vancouver.
Yeah, right now
true?
we're in our sunny period, so we're soaking it up as much as possible. But yeah, there's a lot of rain.
Awesome. I'm really curious about your title. It's actually the first time I've heard of this one, Evolution Officer.
Yes.
What does that mean? What do you do?
Right. Well, a couple years ago, I was very blessed to be contacted by a pretty cool company called the Unicist.org, and they are the research company that discovered the science of evolution. They've developed a bunch of applications for business. And so I did my master's in the science of evolution, the Unicist theory. And that's kind of my niche now is really I'm about innovation and change with the evolutionary approach to marketing. Amazing. And that's what I'm doing for Zuper, helping them grow.
Cool. Let's talk about Zuper. Yeah. In a couple sentences, what does Zuper do?
Yeah, Zuper is a field service management software. So we integrate with all the top CRMs, but we do all of the support for the field techs out on the job site. So for example, let's say you buy an appliance and, a couple months later it breaks or something doesn't work and you phone the appliance company to say, hey, it's not working. Their customer service person will likely determine whether they need to schedule a field visit, right? And so they'll schedule the field tech right within their CRM, but that software then integrates with the Zuper so that field tech out at the job site has all the job details, customer details, and they do what they got to do, take pictures and such and capture, and then they can offer digital payments right there with their tablet or mobile phone and such. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, there's always some software powering some experience.
I know.
There, right?
It's the world of the future.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about Zuper. So if I'm not mistaken, last time when we had a chance to connect, your team is still pretty new.
Yeah.
What has been some of the things that you've learned about building a team?
Yeah. Well, I came to Zuper in January to help them out with their Series A funding, and that's why we were able to hire an executive team in the USA, but the rest of the team is in India. So all of the R&D developers and then the marketing team. So I've been working with another individual in the USA, and we've partnered together to build out this team in India. And it's the way the world's going, and so there's a lot of tools. We use Slack and many other collaboration tools, and then I think the key with the remote team is making sure everybody has the same vision. They're all clear in the mission, the vision of the company, and the metrics and reporting around managing outcomes. So those are probably the two most important elements.
Okay, and so, if I'm not mistaken, you're responsible for the product marketing initiative, right, at Zuper?
Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, because I think we've had maybe one other product marketer on the show before, but it's still, in my opinion, an evolving type of responsibility, and department in many companies that we work with. And so I wanted to get your take on it in terms of how you work with product team members and product departments.
Right, exactly. So how we define it for Zuper is, the brand, the culture, the product positioning, the messaging, all of the sort of elements that go into that, into positioning and conveying the value prop to the buyer, right? So that's kind of how we intersect with product and then the demand gen, growth marketing type team members as well.
Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to value propositions and creating use cases or identifying pain points of like your current users. How much inside or directive does product marketing influence on that?
So in our case, and we're very early startup stage too, so we're still kind of evolving. One of the blessings of having all the R&D in India is that we are able to build many more features and functionality probably a little more efficiently. So product marketing is not as much at the moment playing at the front end. I mean, we sit in and understand the customer insights and the gathering, but we don't actually present that to the product team. The product team is very, very closely connected with the customer as well, and we're a very customer obsessed company. So they, at this point, we have the luxury, we kind of like they ask for it, we build it. But once we have the product roadmap, then the marketing team is really about the positioning, messaging, and how do we get the word out and how do we convert and continue to, renew customers and yeah.
Awesome. And I'm just curious, like when it comes to defining or really getting into the whole mindset of your user personas.
Yeah.
Because requirements or maybe desires, needs of users change, right? Inherently over time. It could be sometimes could be quarterly, sometimes it could just be like a yearly thing. The markets evolve. Like I'm sure with many companies, like with pre-pandemic, during pandemic, things changed, right? So how would you say, should product marketing really be involved in terms of defining the users, their needs, and defining those personas?
Yeah. So I have obviously been lucky to have worked for other larger, a little bit more further along tech companies in the US and have had a little bit more structure there. And I've done the pragmatic marketing philosophy. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a certification here in actually, I think in Washington State. But a lot of the Washington State tech companies do this. And I believe that's the right philosophy as far as, is the need pervasive? Are they willing to pay for it? And is it fit consistently within the vision mission of, your brand, your positioning? Those are the criteria that we've used. And it's usually been a collaboration, so I would imagine as we evolve at Zuper, we'll kind of head in that direction as well, where there is a little bit more of that, sales, marketing, product and such kind of all doing, evolving around this process of a roadmap to determine which are the priority products and features to build out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is just very interesting for me because like every organization I work with, product marketing seems to be different in each company.
Yeah.
So I always like asking these questions because I'm like, oh, you do it this way. Another company does it that way. So as I was saying, like I think it's still like something that's being finessed. Mm-hmm. Going back to something you said earlier with your team being distributed and, the reality is that we all live in a very kind of globalization aspect of like talent. What do you do or how do you manage your remote team?
Mm-hmm. I just got back from India, so it was the first time I got to meet them all, and that was awesome. And so probably twice a year, I'll go spend some quality time in person. But we're using, the tools that exist. Like I said, the Slack is, I'm on there constantly, and we do the quick huddles, and then we have our formal Zoom calls. So. We're actually just now doing a little bit more around the culture as far as building out an intranet and other sort of tools to really start connecting us. But, I think, again, it comes back to the data and results. I'm a huge know your business by the numbers. And, there's lots of books that talk about, that's one of the key things to managing a team anyway, whether they're in person or remote. So we're getting, of course, that further built out so that everybody has that connection to the results that they're producing. So,
if you won't mind sharing, and I don't know, I don't want to obviously impose, but I'd really love to know just from your, in this maybe experience or maybe other ones, what were some of like the KPIs or metrics that you look at as a product marketing leader, that you expect that the team delivers on?
Yeah.
It could be monthly, quarterly, just like some high level ones.
Yeah, well, so for product marketing versus the demand gen part of marketing, where it's obviously a lot easier to measure click throughs and conversions, so that we're really focused on producing customer stories, getting customer reviews, and building out GTMs, getting those delivered on time. And then, we sort of pick up at the website. So making sure we're increasing the time spent on our website and the views of the content that we're building out, the conversion of the website, through to, helping the sales. So that sales enablement of speeding up the conversion to a sale. And then eventually it'll be more around renewals. We're still early that we don't have a big, but next year and the year after, I think loyalty and net promoter score are going to be key as well.
Okay, cool. Next question I have, I think briefly touched upon it, but I wanted to go deeper into it, is like, as you know, I'm sure working in other companies, engineers, developers love building things, right?
Yeah.
So sales folks sell, sometimes they sell something that doesn't exist. So how do we know that all these product features that sales is selling or engineers are building are actually even needed? And what has worked for you when it comes to product marketing in the past to figure that out?
So let me just also, interesting, prior to COVID, I had worked for Zenoti, another India-based company here in Seattle, super successful in literally going out, and they decided they were just going to own the market by owning the top big customers, the large franchisees in the salon spa space. And they literally just went to a customer, said yes to what they wanted and built it. So that was a really good learning for me, because I had just come from Dreambox in the ed tech space, where, like I explained, the pragmatic marketing, where we were very sophisticated and there was a lot of, decisions and collaborations and formulas that we used to kind of decide what we picked. Like I said, with Zuper, it is where we have the luxury right now to build pretty much what people ask. But I think it is a mix of, weighing out against that criteria I mentioned. So is it pervasive enough? Are they willing to pay for it? And does it fit within your vision and mission?
A follow-up question to that. I think that's great. But I've been speaking to a lot of people recently, and there's always that kind of debate where some people have a mindset that, take what your customers tell you that they want you to do with a grain of salt. Like, in the sense, like, really understand what the need is, really understand what it is that they, really need for them to use your product, but how they will use it, or what the actual experience in terms of like delivering something, that's your responsibility to then give to them. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I'm going to now put my science of evolution hat on, which is something I'm constantly, now that I have this new insights, think about. So let me see if I can quickly explain this. Every living entity is an adaptive environment. So I am, a company is a collection of individual living entities. And so the same rules apply to every living entity. So to build a relationship with another living entity, the same science, the same rules. So if you think about a company with a customer, then and here's how it is. You have a shared vision. You have a maximal strategy for growth. In other words, you both believe you can grow or be better together. And so what is that maximal strategy for growth? What's the value add? And then you have a minimal strategy for survival. So that conservation strategy. And that is around shared values and trust. So when you think about building out products and you put that hat on, that also can help you explain, does this strategy help both of us grow? Right? Is the value add there? So I don't know if that helped, but that's another kind of way to put it on.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. There's like always an anthropological, I don't know if I said that correctly, angle, I think, when it comes to building product and like, getting into the psychological aspects of like user needs and stuff like that. So it's a rabbit hole, but it's very interesting how you position it. So thank you. Next question I have is, I wanted to ask you about the something you recently shared with me about where you were, I think, planning on launching a new website. And I think you went through the process and then ultimately just didn't happen. So what happened, and how would you approach it differently?
I think we just met just when that decision came down. So I was probably like, but super, because obviously since then I've had time to kind of reflect on, all right, what would I do differently? How, what do we learn for next time? So yeah, the executive team. So again, just thinking back about Zuper and where we're at, prior to the new year, when a few of us got hired in the USA, it was a CEO working with a small team in India that were doing a lot of SEO. So that's kind of the background. And so I think the anxiety around losing that SEO traction during, this is our peak season right now. So we have decided to push the launch back to the holiday, USA holiday. Just to, because there's typically a 2 to 5 week window where the SEO can kind of drop until it kind of gets caught back up. Exactly. So that's the decision. I think the learning for me, and again, the science of evolution, it's really about being adaptive. And so what you want to do is you want to test, measure, evaluate, reflect, and then adapt. And so if you think about that for the website, next time what I probably would do is just start small, switch the platform, get us onto Webflow, which will allow that flexibility in the testing, and then redo the brand with existing content, and then start picking the pieces of content and redoing it versus making it a big new launch of a website. I think because by now we would have our new website if we had done it that way, which is a little bit more of an adaptive way. But in any case, we've got this lovely website ready to go live. And when it goes live, you'll love it. But and it's optimized for search engine. It's optimized for more content consumption and conversion. So it'll be great. But yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's a very fair point. There's always that scare of thinking of a whole overhaul. There's so much work. If you do it in phases and bite size and you test along the way,
right?
It's definitely sometimes a bit harder to swallow in certain ways because you might not see the results right away or might not be this big shebang of a reveal.
Right.
The one I always love is when we work with clients on marketing website projects is they announce, say, a big series B, C round, right? And then it's we got to launch the new website with this new announcement. We're like, why? Why put all this added extra pressure on a superficial kind of date, right?
Yeah. And I think, again, it's that evolution, that mindset shift of the old way was to kind of, but the new way, and it's with product development too. So not just marketing, right? Where it's that iterative, agile approach. So,
exactly. Yeah. Cool. A couple more questions before we get into the fireside. So I wanted to ask you, what do you feel product marketing leaders do often these days that won't get them perceptions and opinions that they desire?
So right now, because of what the situation I'm in, where I'm, with a startup, and it's very typical. It's that eager push to just quantity, right? Push out, push out, push out. And I think, how can we kind of shift the whole company to quality, or, less is more. And, so I think the tricky, again, is the measuring. So getting all of that structure in place with fidelity so that, this video or that podcast or, what's really driving impact. So I think, some of the things we're doing right now probably aren't quite getting, what we want. But
what would you say are some of those steps or those insights that get missed or skipped along the way?
Well, I think that, there's always, I feel like there's still always that conversation around attribution versus first touch or last touch on tracking pretty much everything, your campaigns to your content. And so I think that will continue to evolve. But right now there's still always a little bit of missing insights, at least I've found. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Cool. Last question before Fireside. What product marketing principles or lessons do you keep coming back to at this stage of your career?
So, again, because I was blessed to have that opportunity around the science of evolution, that is what I'm constantly reminding myself to put on and think about. And it really is that that ability to put yourself in the customer's shoes and think about from their angle. That's the number one thing. I think for actually, it doesn't matter what role you have in a company. I think that ability to empathize and to, put yourself in someone's shoes, your customer's shoes, your prospects, and then to self-reflect and adjust and adapt. So.
Okay, that's true. I think even with my own marketing team, it's all about adaptability and being flexible, right? Experimenting, I think, is also key.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Fireside format, question, answer. Try to keep the answer short. It's always tricky, but one to two sentences if you can. All right, so the first question I have is, how do you ask better questions when it comes to product marketing?
Putting the customer hat on, right? So customer obsession, putting yourself in their shoes.
Okay, great. What have you become better at saying no to over the years as a leader?
Hiring, no, trying to know as quickly as possible, does that person have the capacity for empathy and growth mindset?
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's the first time I actually had somebody brought that up. Okay, cool. If you could only work 2 hours every week, what would you want to do with that critical time?
Okay, so two ways of answering that. As a CMO, insights, so getting in front of customers and looking at the data and then spending time with the, coaching and mentoring your staff. If it was like, okay, you have only 2 years, throw away your career, I'd pursue thought leadership around the science of evolution. I'm super passionate about it, and I'm working on a book, and so, yeah.
Wow, you're working on the book. Okay. That's very interesting. I'll ask more questions after.
Cool.
What is the one or two most worthwhile personal investments you've made?
Yeah, I midway through my career, I just spent a couple years as a marketing director in the e-commerce world, and I was managing teams of people who knew more than I did about the search engine. So I actually quit, and I went and worked for a search agency for about a year. I made no money, but I just knew that the future was digital. This was probably about 16, 17 years ago. I just needed to understand how the search engines work, because it really was central to everything. And so it was, obviously it's paid dividends, not really getting much money for a year was worth it for that learning. So I thought that was kind of my thinking on a good investment.
So you kind of learned and understood how SEO works and that side of
I got trained by one of the early agencies here in Seattle, that knowledge around how search engines work, was just invaluable, and it was worth what I'm saying, because at that point, I was a director, so I could have chosen money, but I actually thought, no, I'm going to just work for free even, to get that knowledge. Because I remember someone telling me that once, in you're thinking about your next career move, pick learning, pick knowledge, pick that part, and the pay will come.
No, that's so true.
Yeah.
Good for you for doing that. That's, I think, an invaluable investment you made. Okay, next question is, what is one or two books that has greatly influenced your life?
Again, because of this science of evolution, the future research with Unicist theory has been, really life-changing for me. But I also feel like with books, it is an evolutionary approach. I even read books twice, but not in a row. Read it once, and 5 years later, after you've read a bunch of other books, read it again, and it'll because everything's like this. It adds on to what you've learned, if that makes sense. So, so I'm just always trying to, pick up. Constantly be reading a book. A lot of people talk about doing that, so it's kind of common sense. Yeah.
Last question: what product marketers listening to this should start doing tomorrow that they are not doing?
Not to beat a dead horse, but again, so if you don't have the capacity for empathy, probably can't help you. You have to fake it. But if you do have that capacity, then that's what just constantly be working on that growth mindset, right? So that ability to put yourself in other people's shoes, to self-reflect, to, evaluate and adapt. So get rid of fear. That is the number one obstacle to growth, is your fear of change. So, so I talk about this with my team members all the time. So.
Amazing. Okay. Carmen, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wealth of experience, and always thank you to our listeners for tuning in and supporting the show. Great having you, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.